you would have appreciated it.
Really?
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, I heard about it all day long, I can tell you that.
And we're just joined by Senator Przanski in the room.
Dinah? Hi, Dinah.
Hello.
So should we get started?
Yeah, we got someone else. We have Lieutenant Testis here. In uniform.
Sheriff Dodson just called in.
Hello, welcome.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Great.
Good.
We do roll call, but I don't know if we do all our visitors as well, or just if it's just the committee.
Yeah, probably just the committee members. So, welcome everybody on the phone. We'll get started. My name's Mike Schmidt, Director of the Criminal Justice Commission. Happy to be here. We'll do a roll call of all the members of the Asset Forfeiture Committee, starting with folks in the room, and then we'll move to those members joining us by phone.
Lieutenant Fred Testa with the Oregon State Police.
Elijah Michalowski, DOJ.
Matt McCauley with the Department of Justice.
Floyd Przanski, State Senator.
And those are the members in the room. On the phone,
Sheriff Dodson, Lincoln County.
Dinah Vittlins, Frick County.
Okay.
okay, great. And we know we've got a bunch of other folks on the phone joining us, so thanks for joining in. I think we've got your names down here. If anyone else hasn't announced themselves yet, please do so at this point so we know who's on the phone with us. Hearing no volunteers.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I didn't hear what you said. Maybe I could have answered for you.
Oh,
I didn't hear you.
Oh,
I
yes,
wasn't listening to you. Okay.
there you go.
Wasn't
You're
for
just
them.
blocking me out.
All right. Sorry.
So that's the roll call. We can go straight to item number 2 on the agenda, which is online publication versus newspaper publication, and Dinah Vittlins by phone.
So I've been doing a poll from law enforcement agencies around the state, and everybody thinks it's a good idea. Essentially, as we talked about during our last meeting, that people just don't read newspapers. Unfortunately, they used to, and online publication may give better notice. So then Andy Olson was going to talk with. He had a contact. Because the issue is, what about newspapers and the funding that's part of that? And so I haven't had a chance to talk to Representative Olson about what, if anything, he found out. But I wanted to propose whether we should consider maybe a bifurcated approach towards the end of full online publications, like maybe just require 1 week of publication along with 4 weeks of publication on the agency's website or something along those lines.
I have no objection to that.
Any discussion?
I just have this is Matt McCauley with DOJ. My question is, my memory is that we had discussed whether we were going to talk about a central website that would be all law enforcement. I may have a property interest, right, and I may be in a completely different county, and if I don't, I may not even know what the seizing agency exactly was, right? So I wouldn't know. Did we discuss that? I can't remember, Dinah.
I think we did a little bit, but Matt, the issue would be that that notice of seizure for forfeiture could easily include, that website for the sheriff's office, but again, if the group thinks one, location statewide for to try to get information about forfeitures makes sense, that's also doable. But we could easily include that in the notice of seizure for forfeiture that for more information or to see your post or see assets that are attempting to be forfeited, go to this website.
Donna, this is Fred Testa. I think the only issue we had with that, if my memory serves me right, is who would maintain that website and at what cost? And do we have the personnel to do that, or would it be easier, like you said, in the notice it has the county and they can just have access to that county website, if my memory serves me right? Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, the beauty of, for instance, if I do a forfeiture for Crick County Sheriff's Office, the beauty of that is I work with my clerical staff works with the clerical staff in the Sheriff's Office on a daily basis. It's easy for me to get an affidavit from that individual that says I published. I don't have any of that difficulty that you might if it's just one statewide location, and it seems like it would be. You have to have at least a half-time person to not only post these notices for the required 4 weeks, but then also submit affidavits to the seizing agencies that, in fact, that the notice was published.
Right, and if I remember right, what we thought would be a good idea was have that one website, possibly the DOJ website or what have you, and then it has the link to each county. So you basically have a portal that could bring you to that county. So there is a central one to go to, but then it can direct you to the exact county. So that way you have that, that reach out and touch you piece that you're talking about. Does that sound right?
So did you say Department of Justice or the Criminal Justice Commission?
I think it was more Criminal Justice Commission that we were talking about at the time.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
But again, it would just be more of a facilitator to the county for which it was seized. Basically a link to that county. I think that's where we left it off last. Then it sounded like everyone liked that idea or something to that nature.
So would this be that we would have kind of a uniformity of, let's say if CJC was the one, that'd be just a point of information telling someone if they're looking for information on a forfeiture seizure, what links to the different counties? So this is kind of like an overview, or is it going to have the specific information that's going to have to be updated for each and every potential forfeiture that CJC would have if that was the agency on a statewide basis?
Senator Brzezinski, I think we were talking more that with the first one you were talking about.
Okay, generic.
Right, we wouldn't, CJC wouldn't be maintaining all that information. Basically, a drop-down menu for each county, and when you hit that county, it'd link you to that county.
Okay.
So basic minimal maintenance,
And
if
then,
at all.
Dinah, regarding the actual notice that we're talking about, when someone's property has been seized, the claimant or potential claimant, they're going to receive this information at the time of the seizure, and then that's going to have the county connection for how they go through it at the county level, and this other would be just kind of more of a generic type of scenario that if someone was trying to find something, they could go there and they say, oh, now I need to know what county it is, but the person who would be making the claims actually going to get physical notice given to them. They need to go to that county website.
I think that's.
So
what we want.
Senator Brzezinski, anybody who we reasonably believe has any interest in the asset must be personally served with a notice of seizure for forfeiture. So, and in terms of that, we could certainly add a website, the website information if you want to, like that has a list of assets that have been seized. But that individual would get that notice, and it specifically directs you about how to file a claim, which is in writing to the asset forfeiture attorney, which would be me, by this date, 21 days from the date you were served. So the person who actually gets served with the notice gets very good notice. What we're talking about is that kind of forfeiture policy that's been in effect ever since forfeitures began, which requires us to give notice to the world about the fact that the government is seizing and forfeiting this asset. So it would be, I've never had anybody file a claim after publication because of the requirement that we give anybody who could potentially have an interest that notice of forfeiture.
Okay, and so basically by modifying from how many publications are required in the hard news, we would basically rely on what, one publication notice, and then the rest would be through the internet?
That was the idea.
Okay.
That you'd actually post the actual notice, and the notice is required to have the kind of the basic facts of why the property seized, the property that was seized, and who it was seized from, and approximate value.
Okay.
Hey, Dinah, this is Dennis Dodson. You made the comment about the requirement for notifying the world, informing the world. That would be through of course, the local newspaper from the jurisdiction that had the forfeiture, correct?
Correct. So nothing would. Okay, sorry.
No, I was just going to say that. I was just going to explain this, work this thought out. Please bear with me. So if a person subscribed to the paper, either electronically or received it at their home, they would get that information. The suggestion from the DOJ rep there about a link on Criminal Justice's website for every county, a person would then, if they have an interest for forfeitures that may be occurring in all 36 counties, would have to click on every single one of those links to find out if there was something going on that they might have interest in. Or specifically, if they they knew that Cook County and they heard that there was an arrest and there were items seized, they might just click on Cook County's website. And that's basically how that would probably work with that particular suggestion.
That's right.
This is Mike Schmidt. Does every county have a specific URL website that lists this, like that posts this stuff?
I think we haven't gotten there yet.
We haven't gotten there yet.
But I think it's easy enough to do.
Because I was thinking from the CJC perspective, it would be easy enough for us to have a web page for asset forfeiture, and then just have a state map with all the counties. You could click on the county that you think it's been seized in, and it would just take you straight to that specific seized web page. That'd be super easy for us to do.
It wouldn't require the counties to do the maintenance.
That's great. I like that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, but Senator Ferrioli's joined us. I think the only thing is if the seizing agency is going to have some type of resources, I would assume, for inquiries that are coming to them once someone locks in, oh, I think this is something I'm interested in, or as to how they file their claim or get more information. I mean, that's kind of how it's supposed to work now, even without the electronic page.
Well, there could be a button on the page to file a claim that takes you to a web page.
Right now, how that would work is if you clicked on the Cook County Sheriff's Office website, because that's where you could get more information, or for instance, the Cook County District Attorney's Office, it would list my office as the contact person, me as a contact person.
Okay.
And as you know, as forfeiture counsel, attorney fees, reasonable attorney fees are I'm able to obtain reasonable attorney fees as part of the forfeiture.
Okay. Yeah.
The other part of that, as far as clicking on the outline of the county that a person might have interest in, would it be possible for CJC to obtain all the contact information for all forfeiture counsel or forfeiture counsel personnel for the 36 counties, and that's what would pop up. For Lincoln County, for example, it would take us to take the person to legal counsel, and they would then know who to get a hold of. And as far as any other information, as far as how to, on that page that CJC might create, that they would have a kind of a box or a how-to, and people could click on different questions, and there would be the answer.
Yeah, Mike Schmidt again. I don't see why. I mean, we could definitely do that. We could even have it for counties that do have websites. You can link right there. And for counties that don't have websites, we could just have contact information pop up. Wouldn't be hard to do.
So like a frequently asked question
We could
page.
have an FAQ page. We could have a preloaded form on there that someone could download, like a PDF, and print out and fill out. We could do that too if there was a universal one that somebody wanting to file a claim needed. We could definitely.
And for prosecutors, I essentially came up. I don't know a good name for it, but I call it Forfeiture for Dummies, secretly. But it had the way we set it up was from start to end on a forfeiture case, and that would be a great way to structure the frequently asked questions. So your Maserati has been seized.
Thanks. Put more gas in it next time.
That would be great.
Yeah, we could definitely do that. We're working on updating our website right now anyway, so this is fortuitous timing for us to be able to make these changes.
So regarding this section, I personally, based on what I've heard, I think it would be fine. We are moving in an electronic world and era, and the newspaper isn't as commonly used, so it seems like this would be, let's say, maintaining the traditional way, but moving us further into the electronic age.
And so do you think this is legislation for the February 16th session, potentially?
Definitely could be. I mean, are you asking that versus trying to get something in today? I mean, for this cycle?
I'd love to get something in today.
I mean, if we can get things all written up, we can see if we have any relating clauses that are available. I don't know. I'll check to see where my committee is as to priority bills, but there is a deadline, I believe, that at least is internal deadline, that you have to have something filed for the president's office to have it move into the system to be considered. So I will have judiciary staff to look at what relating clauses are on both sides of the building, and it may be something that, if it's not controversial and it's not going to interfere with someone else's legislation, we may be able to just put it onto when the bill comes from the first chamber to the second.
Would you like me to take a shot at drafting some language?
That'd be great. Yeah, whatever you can get to us, Dinah, would be great, and then we can get it to LC. And feel free to contact the judiciary staff, and I will find out, Chana, who is actually the point there. I'm thinking she probably is, since this is a ongoing year-round effort as compared to being one of our session hires.
Oh, that'd be excellent. I'll try to get something done by tomorrow.
Oh, that's great.
Great. Anything else on online publication versus newspaper before we move on to the third bullet of the agenda?
All right.
Serena.
So there was a work group that got together. We had someone from the state police kind of representing state agency, and then we had someone from a local agency, and then we had Dinah, and the four of us worked on revising our forms, because the initial issue was agencies couldn't report the seizures for forfeiture as soon as practicable, because the system wouldn't allow it until they received a judgment. So we kind of went through and weeded out, not a whole lot, just a couple of things that didn't seem real pertinent to what we needed as a committee. But the main thing that we did is we separated out the forms. So there's Form 1. The old way used to be Form 1, which basically had all case details. And then there was Form 2, which had all the details on the money and finances in the end. So to make it to where folks can report more immediate, we've changed Form 1 to only include seizure information. And so that can get into the system and reported. And then we changed Form 2 to dispositional data. So then that's where all the judgment information goes into, along with the financial piece. The Form 3, we changed. Form 3 is kind of our year-end stats. It's for each agency. They can run a Form 3, and it'll show them the whole sum for the year that was reported. So we changed a couple things on that. Not a whole lot. The biggest change to Form 3 is we gave it a capability for agencies to acknowledge compliance to how their proceeds can be spent per the criminal and civil forfeiture laws. So they go in, they acknowledge compliance, and that's basically replaced our local agency form, what we called our local agency form that showed, basically it was like an Excel spreadsheet that showed how much money they got and what they bought with their money, but it wasn't necessarily what they bought with their money that they received that year. It's just, what did you buy this year? And it could have been from. So the form itself was even a little bit, it didn't really sum things up. It gave you a different picture than what it really was. So we've been trying it out. We have some folks out there on the phone that have been doing some of it. I hope it's been working out okay. I haven't heard too many complaints. The main challenge for some agencies is, one person is entering all the case details from seizure, forfeiture through judgment, and then you've got their accounting individual that's doing just the accounting part. So now with the form that includes all disposition, they kind of have to share that form and work together. One has to get it started and the other person has to finish it. One thing that was brought up from someone was, it was from Eric Fisher from our work group. He had mentioned that once our agencies have to enter, once they enter in, as you people out there that have to do all the data entry, you know what I'm talking about. If the case isn't finalized within that year, they have to, in a sense, cancel it out and start all over the next year. And so that too kind of gives us, to me, not valid stats saying, what did you seize for forfeiture in 2014? Well, it didn't get finished in 2014, so now we can't even report it until 2015 or until it's finished. So he had mentioned, he goes, now that we have to enter these, now that we're able to enter them on time, cases can take forever. And if it's not done within that year, then they're just going to have to turn around and cancel it out again. So I'm actually working with the software people right now in hopes to put a fix to that. So then once they complete the seizure information, the Form 1, once that's complete, that is reportable, and the agencies can continue on and tailgate off that case. So there's not extra work on their part. Does that make sense? Kind of?
Mm-hmm. So those who are on the phone that are using the forms, any feedback to Serena or others?
No, the information she just gave us is really useful. And it would be really nice for that to not have to redo them at the end of the year. I think that'd be great.
Yeah. And the Form 3 went pretty slick for those of you who have had to do it for 2014.
Yes.
Yay.
Who has on the phone? Who has used it?
Who has used which ones?
The new format.
Who on the phone has used the new format? I think,
I have. Pam with Washington County has.
okay. And Cheryl, have you?
I used the new Form 3, but not the 1 and 2 yet.
Okay. And then Bob, I think I saw some from you.
Yeah.
Okay, for the new Form 1, and I'm not sure if you got Form 2 yet, but
We're doing some this week.
okay.
the only one right now that went start to finish and positive feedback. Great.
Yeah, looks like it. Great. So, any other questions on that? Just trying to make life easier for them out there. And any one of these?
So moving on to the fourth point on the agenda,
Ask them to bring one down.
reviewing the annual report. And Serena will take us through this as well.
Okay, so since I was able to weed out some of the stuff from last year and have a new Form 3, life got a lot simpler when putting together the report. So that made me happy. As we run through it, what I don't have, and I don't know if it's something that we need or want, last report we had some legislative stuff that was reported in our annual report, basically just like happenings, what's new with asset forfeiture, what have you. We don't have anything, so I don't know if anyone has any ideas that you want to add anything to this report, or just leave it strictly as is, we have a report of statistics, here you go.
Well, I glanced at the report. I think the report and giving the data is fine, but I don't know if it might be nice putting what we just talked about into it so people know what it's been working on and where we're going. So I think it's worth tooting your horns as to, we've got the new forms, so people have that, call it out.
Just kind of a synopsis of the changes and what we're hoping to accomplish.
And then I think also regarding how publication's gonna work, because to me, that's the biggest thing, is just getting more information out for those interested parties who may be looking for this type of information on a regular basis to understand we're making this shift, and they should be starting to look at online and what the goals are, and how CJC is gonna have this kind of general, generic information available with links to the different counties.
Yep.
Alright.
Make it a little pizzazz instead of just a bunch of numbers.
Sure. Yeah. Sounds good.
Can we look at some of the content and ask
Yeah.
questions about the content?
Yes.
So I expect the Oregon State Police to be leading the league in seizures because they do so many road miles and they're out interdicting. Medford looks like they're, the local police departments, they're just off the scale. I've heard Medford referred to as Methford, but not, in sort of a pejorative way. Why is the Medford Police Department, outperforming by 2.5 times the next highest seizure jurisdiction, this county state police?
My guess when I saw that is just the entry from I-5. I'm not sure what the interventions actually are, if they're actually in the city, meaning stuff that's more local, or if it's just road traffic. I don't know that, but.
I did Oregon State Police in our drug enforcement section. We only have a detective on that team. We don't have any supervisory role. So I'd say that would be your best place to start asking those questions.
Yeah, I'd like to know.
I can only speculate, but I don't have any actual answers
Is it
for you.
circumstantial? Is it a matter of different training regime or operational regimes, or is it that they've emphasized seizure as a practice?
I can speculate. I know they had they're a larger team, but again, then you have CCI, TF, and Washington County. So again, it's tough to say.
I certainly can't speak for Met Police Department, but it's a more complex scenario than I think you originally saw, because if you're just looking there at criminal
you're just looking
forfeiture,
at criminal forfeiture or civil.
It's also civil forfeiture, and so there's, different agencies may choose to use one tool over the other.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you look at civil forfeiture, they're still high, fairly high there, but not as high. I think that when you look at civil forfeiture, it's actually the DENT team, the Douglas County team, that stands out. But the other thing is that when you're looking at the criminal forfeiture, that's Medford Police Department, but they also have the road area drug enforcement, and they also have the MADGE team, which I don't see. on either list, and so then maybe the MADGE team is there, maybe they're doing all of their forfeitures through the police department rather than through the drug team in itself, and I know they're a very active team down there.
Processes are, yeah, I just echo what Elijah's saying, is this is Matt McCauley, is that the processes for doing criminal versus civil, or whether you have DEA essentially embedded in your team, because if DEA is in your team, they're gonna do the lion's share of that forfeiture is gonna be done federally, with assets sharing back via the federal formula. So, and sometimes it's ICE and sometimes it's IRS, and so it makes it vary. So these really probably are not gonna reflect the total number of assets or the things that are happening. These are reflecting when it goes state and when they choose each of these processes. Does that make more sense?
It does.
I'll talk to one other point, and that is that I think you're gonna see a drastic change in the next year or two in those seizure numbers of how many, the numbers here. Because what you have is Southern Oregon more of a location for marijuana, whereas a lot of the seizures come from the marijuana cases because of the cash business. So I think you're seeing a lot because MADGE is a larger organized team. DINT is organized, RAID's actually pretty high for the size of the team it is, so what you're gonna see is probably those decrease in the next year or two as the recreational marijuana has been legalized.
And I think that's an excellent point, because under the criminal forfeitures, when you look at drug-related data, one of the things that jumped out at me is how high the marijuana, as the drug-related case was. So I think that makes a great point.
Very nice.
I'm not having enough over the years.
Yeah. Professional courtesy, I say.
We had a discussion on the Measure 91 implementation team, and I have received information from OLCC that they do in fact have facilities that would be able to receive and sequester in a separate location away from the bonded warehouse marijuana seizures. And I expect there'll be a pretty significant number of current growers that, notwithstanding our best efforts to legitimize those folks and bring them into a regulated system, are making a living and have done so for the last 20 years, have already crossed the barrier, so to speak, of whether or not they're going to engage in a criminal enterprise, are quite comfortable in that criminal enterprise, and may not wish to be legitimate. So I'm not exactly sure you're going to see the fall off, the direct fall off of interdiction. As a matter of fact, for a while, I think it would continue on the curve that it's on. And at some point in time, that acts as an incentive for people to migrate to the legitimate side of the enterprise. But if we also have an outlet for seized marijuana, which currently gets burned, it may be possible that your asset forfeiture values could skyrocket. And so, let me just give you a thumb back of the envelope kind of an example. A 30-acre parcel in Southern Oregon with 150 marijuana plants, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch style, middle 70s type house and a barn. So the property might be worth $300,000 and the crop might be worth $3 million. And currently we're burning the crop because we have no legitimate outlet for it. But under a certain scenario of seizure, that crop could be re-entered into the legitimate market at $200 an ounce, and you're looking at millions of dollars in forfeiture assets that we weren't able to capture before. So I would just suggest to you that we think, at least in terms of the outlaws that want to remain outlaws, we may end up having some interdiction in those grows that are not licensed, not legal, and could produce a significant asset foreclosure or for seizures. So, something to think about.
If you were to do something like that, so Floyd, you might, since the three of us are on that 91 committee,
We're close to a quorum here. One more house member.
Oh man, we're gonna, hey, how are we going to do?
No, we're all good.
We're okay, we're okay.
We're counting
If we
numbers.
were to do something like that, I mean, I find that intriguing, but we would probably have to run it through the mill when we, kind of like the process of what we've been thinking about right now, to determine whether it's,
Yeah,
well,
I mean, if it's gonna be a forfeiture,
speed, yeah.
it's gonna go through that process.
Well, yesterday we couldn't consider it an asset. After July 1,
It's an asset.
we're gonna be marketing it in
Right.
locations
Exactly.
near you, in your neighborhood. And so the question is, do we just lose the value or do we try to capture the value? That's just a question that this organization ought to think about. Because I believe the authorities are already gonna be built into the statutes. You know, the only switch that you flip is, do you consider it an asset or do you consider it a destructible illegal commodity?
Evidence or an asset. Yeah.
Exactly. Or both, I mean. You know, the Maserati example, I'm not gonna burn the Maserati.
No.
Okay, it's just you know, it's a difficult concept because of our 150-year history of interdiction and destruction of illegal drugs. We, you know, Oregon's a different place July 1.
So that'd be on the CJC website.
Bags of dope. No, you know, the only people I think that we would be interested in working with on an auction would be the licensed processors who
That's
have
how it's gonna be.
testified in front of us that they have a prodigious need for unlimited quantities of this stuff.
Yep.
You guys ought to be watching these hearings. It's really intriguing.
Or come and join us.
Better dinner theater than in person, I think. All right, well, that's just my input.
Well,
Well, that was my explanation for that higher seizures in
Yeah,
the
sure.
southern Oregon,
Makes
southwestern
sense.
Oregon region.
Yeah.
That makes the most sense. Whether it's going to change or not, that's yet to be seen. You're right.
I don't know, I would expect,
Good question.
I would have expected the Baker County team and the other coast, you know, other border communities to have just as high an incidence of interdiction seizures.
Some just don't have the teams
That's
in place.
That's probably it, yeah.
all right. Anything else about the report? I just have, there was just some total proceeds, the discrepancy that I just needed to talk with our software folks. I think there was a little,
It's not like the DEA
Chink in
guys
that,
that
so.
opened Bitcoin accounts in the Barbados.
I
Did
don't
you
know
read
anything
that
about
article?
that.
No, what is that?
Oh, well, there's a couple of guys that did asset forfeiture sort of on a ad hoc basis. They were put on the investigation on Bitcoins because that's clearly an opportunity to launder money and drug proceeds and stuff on a scale we can't even imagine. And they figured out a way to hack the Bitcoin accounts and did so, you know. And then it suddenly occurred to one of them, well, we can just transfer the value to another account. Why don't we try to do that in an offshore account, you know, under an assumed name with our passwords? So now they're both, you know, object of intense scrutiny by the Department of Justice.
It's tricky though, stealing bitcoins.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
there's
what
no
is a Bitcoin?
Yeah, what
There
is
is no, it's digital, it's virtual money.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
digital money, there's
So
no
what does
central.
that mean? They take a picture of you and Photoshop you into prison? What do they do? Is it a digital sentence? A virtual sentence?
A virtual sentence. That's great. All right. Well, that's the agenda. Is there anything else for the good of the order?
I hope you'll forgive me, but I had a quick question about Senate Bill 391.
Okay.
And that is that prohibits law enforcement from seizing money that's either posted or attempted to be posted for purposes of forfeiture without a court order. And I just wondered, is that going to move? Any chance of making an argument that it won't? That we can tinker with it a little bit, or is it a done deal?
Donna, I need to look at the bill. I don't remember it in detail, just based on that. So 391, and let me get back to you.
It's scheduled for a work session tomorrow morning.
Ooh.
I have to be in the Capitol at 1 o'clock. Should I just come early?
Posting for bill. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, that bill is scheduled to be getting some action on it. I'm sorry, I didn't hear when you said Bell. I wasn't hearing Bell. So, do you need more time or what?
Well, I just, so Rob had some ideas about, what the issue is that I don't have any problem with, if bail's already posted, that if we want to try to seize it, we need to get a court order, and frankly, that's never going to happen. No court is going to allow us to seize it for forfeiture when it's already posted for security. It's the language of attempts to deposit. So when somebody arrives, they're walking into the jail with a big bag of money that's clearly proceeds of illegal activity. We just simply don't have time to get a seizure order ahead of time. And one of the two suggestions were just remove the attempts to deposit language and or require the seizing agency to obtain a seizure order within 3 days after seizure, or have a sooner probable cause hearing, something along those lines that would allow us to prevent money laundering essentially, and using proceeds of illegal activity to post security for people.
Yeah, Diana, I'm going to.
This is Andrew Polnitz, and I had wanted to raise that as well. And I think the expedited probable cause hearing is probably the best solution from my perspective.
Yeah. So I need to check with the judiciary staff to see who's the counsel on that particular bill and what they've been working on, because as you can imagine, I allow for those judicial staff councils to work different groups and getting information and putting stuff together. So I'm not sure where they're at. It was put on the schedule, and based on the testimony we had in the hearings as to where individuals' money, was taken in, if I remember correctly, in Clackamas County, and it basically they doubled, tried to secure, and all that money got hung up, and there was there wasn't anything showing that it was tied to illegal activities. So, and my understanding from what I remember was that the individuals that were attempting to post were diverted into another room where then agents for whatever agency it was came in and basically started to investigate and wanting to know where that money came from. And that seems like there's a protocol issue there as to at what point do you get to intervene. And one of those families, I remember that there was twice that they brought money in, and they went through this twice. So it seems to me that there's let's say people are being diverted away from being able to do what they're trying to do for the process of getting someone out on bail, and the money's being held up without, at least in the example that was given in that particular one, without the justification of tying it to illegal activities.
And so, is there a way? Is there a way to? So does the expedited hearing or requiring? I don't have a problem actually with if the officer has to have probable cause in order to seize the money. Otherwise, they legally cannot seize anything for forfeiture. So I wonder if the officer is required to file an affidavit and get a seizure order after the fact, within 3 days after the seizure for forfeiture, when we're talking about security.
Yeah, and Andrew Coleman, again, that solution seemed most appropriate to me. I had a very similar case where there was, I think, more of an argument that there was probable cause when an individual was posting bail. But it was a valid issue, and the case got further complicated because it ended up in federal court. but there was a period of months where the money was essentially in limbo.
Do you think it would be possible, Senator Przanski, for I can show up at tomorrow's hearing and maybe have a quick discussion with Dave Bedanke and Gail Myers to see if there's anything we can work out? I mean, I think that is completely inappropriate that you go to post bail and all of a sudden you're interviewed by police officers. That's very different from what happens in our jurisdiction. Is there'll be a major, 6 or 8 search warrants, and they'll be surveilling an individual who basically gets the cash out of out of some place. Nobody has any income to support that nobody has a job to support that kind of income, and it's a major drug dealing operation. That's what I'm talking about, the money laundering of money in order to post that of security, not just anybody comes in with bail and the next thing you know they're being investigated.
Well, the example I gave you is one that I felt that we needed to do something about because it didn't seem right, like you said. Regarding a probable cause or reasonable belief that something is actually going down that's illegal, why wouldn't the state or county, whoever's the agency that's involved in that investigation, not filing something with the court to put basically notice on that money, thinking that that money was ill-gotten?
You mean once the security is posted, then file a notice of seizure for forfeiture?
Unless you can go get the order and stop that from occurring. I mean, you're basically saying someone's liberty is going to be held up for a day or 2 or 3 for the process to go forward to somehow make a claim. I mean, I think you got a liberty issue unless you've got
a logic issue. So somebody is arrested. There's because of an interagency investigation, and a bunch of folks are, at least put in holding prior to booking. Phone calls go out, and then somebody, that may not be a object of surveillance shows up with a shoebox full of $40,000 and $100 bills. So then, the question is, why didn't you bring me a check from a bank? Well, you can't bank the money because it's, there's federal reporting requirements. $40,000 in cash seems to be a pretty substantial amount of money to be hauling around in a shoebox. Nobody's working. So I think the investigators are perfectly legitimate and justifiable in asking the question, doesn't it seem logical that these are the proceeds from a criminal enterprise? The problem is you can't have people walking into post bail and becoming a subject of an investigation. That is, you don't have probable cause to ask the questions, and there's nothing that necessarily connects that act with people in the interview.
The seizure occurring and the potentially seizure of the individuals themselves at that point.
I wonder, I apologize for thinking out loud, but I wonder along your line, Senator Przanski, if the individual post bail and the seizing agency believes that they have probable cause to believe that it's subject to forfeiture, that they file a notice, and that automatically triggers a hearing with the court, and then the judge decides whether there is probable cause for the forfeiture or not. It can be then part of the forfeiture case, and at the end of the criminal case, if there's a judgment of civil forfeiture, then it goes and is dispersed along civil forfeiture lines rather than being used for fines, fees, and the normal things that individuals use security for. It sounds a little complicated, but it might be it would protect what you're trying to do as well as not allowing people to get away with using proceeds to post security.
So is it up to the judge to decide whether or not the bad guys get out? Is the bail posted subject to seizure? Is the bail seized?
Essentially, once I guess the issue, what I'm proposing is if the bail is posted, then they're out, right? But that money that's used to post the bail
Could be
at
subject
the end,
now.
if the judge makes a finding that there is probable cause for forfeiture, that money is not allowed to be used for fines, fees, and all that. And if we obtained a conviction for forfeiture, it doesn't help the fact that you're basically using proceeds to post bail, but it takes care of that. What Senator Przonski was talking about, that that we seize it, and then 5 days later you're still in jail, and we can't show a connection between illegal activity and the money.
Yeah, Diana, that's right. I mean, what I remember from that hearing was basically, once that money's been taken in for bail, it's secure. It's not that money's not going anywhere, and so it should give the agency enough time to file the claim that they believe that money that was used for bailing someone out is subject to forfeiture. And I think that's what I came away with as to what we were looking at. And but at least the agent, or I'm going to say the jurisdiction that was involved in this, didn't seem that like that was the way they wanted to go. They preferred leaving the person in custody for some, let's say, unlimited time.
So one of the issues is I had a case like that where we attempted to take the money after it was posted for security because we clearly could show that it was proceeds of illegal conduct, and the judge said just no. Once it's posted, it's it's the court's money, and we're going to use it for our fines and fees. And so, too bad, so sad. So I think that's a result that we're trying to avoid, and I wonder if there's any possibility that we could come up with some sort of middle ground.
I don't know. I mean, to be very frank, I've got a committee I'm supposed to be in 4.5 minutes, so I'm not going to be able to give you that answer. I think it'd be best for you to come in. It sounds to me, for whatever reason, there has not been a meeting of the minds of the various interested parties, and I would suggest that you do so. And we'll figure out whether we're going to move it. I mean, the reality, it is a Senate bill, and there would definitely be time to talk about it on the House side if you can't come to some type of consensus before tomorrow morning.
There's 3 takeaways from this discussion for me. First of all, they say there's no honor among thieves. So this also applies to the judicial system.
I heard that.
The second thing is it's possible to use the court system to launder money. Because if somebody brings a shoebox full of $40,000 and uses that for bail and it's not seized, they're going to get a check back. They're not going to get $100 bills back from the court. So that would be one way to launder money. And the third thing is probably it wouldn't be a good idea to use marked bait money as bail. That's going to be a problem.
Blue dye all over.
I'm out. All in. I'm out.
All right, well, thank you, everybody, for joining by phone. We're breaking up here.
Fascinating.